This is the 76th anniversary of NATM, and last year we did last year our presentation was, but I can do the job. So this year on the Department of Labor website, they have a variety of different things you can do to help raise awareness for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So I chose to do the discussion panel of who I am. So that's what we wanted to do for this month. I also want to give a special thanks to All Ability Recruiting for just believing in this, uh, just this month and just everything about it. And also, I want to give a special thanks to All Ability Recruiting for allowing me to uh, pour into their vision and be a part of their advisory board. And I just we want to say thank you so much for backing us up with just being a sponsor for this. So for those who don't know me, I am Tyrone Starkey, your moderator for tonight, but also the CEO and founder of Community Heroes. If you would like to know more about Community Heroes or ways that you can follow us, you can email me or use my office number. But also, I should have put this up here. You can go to our official website, which is www.communityheroes.net, and you can find out all about the different things we do to raise awareness, our philosophy and vision about this disability inclusion, and where we would like to see the battle for inclusion in the next couple of years. Okay, so the importance of NATM. So you see here in this year, 2020, the thing is America's Recovery Powered by Inclusion. Again, the whole point of why we want to raise awareness is to get to the point where whenever we think about building something, creating jobs, just anything that we want to do to better the society, we want to make sure that everyone can take full advantage of the opportunities equally. So we don't have to go back and say, "Oh, we forgot about that." It takes time. It takes money. If you do it right the first time, you don't have to worry about going back and fixing it. So that was that thing, especially now since the pandemic hit. There's a lot of things that have happened that, in a good way, that has made inclusion a big part of the special needs population, and we were able to participate in a lot of things. And then last, just a little history. You see, back in 1945, where Congress declared this during the first week of October, back then known as the National Employee for Physically Handicapped Week. And as time progressed, you see that they kind of changed it and put an emphasis that focused more on employment in the community at competitive wages for all individuals. So a little bit about our speakers tonight. We see our first speaker, Anissa Powell, and I'll let you read a little bit about her accomplishment. We're not going to read all of it. Everybody read on their own pace, but we are so happy to have her here with us tonight. Our second presenter will be Aston Griffin, and you can see his accomplishments. And then we have Denaya Manson, and we are so happy that she was able to join us tonight.
And we pronounce that Dania. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I knew I was feeling good, man. So I was like, I ain't missed nobody's name yet. I knew it was gonna happen. And then lastly, Rishaw Butler, who will come out here and present. And I'm happy that he's going to be able to do this tonight. So just a couple of objectives that hopefully once this is over, our attendees will be able to leave with tonight. So again, of course, just what is the significance of just this month? Just understanding that at the end of the day, job opportunity, whether it be through employment or job performance, should be something that employers judge based on academic or work experience itself and not uncontrollable environmental or genetic factors. We will hopefully you'll understand a little bit about some of the barriers that individuals with disabilities have faced in the past and presently. You will hear some maybe figures or important role models that had helped some of us along the way. And lastly, we want you to be able to take away just a sense of wanting to raise awareness about this emerging population of individuals with disabilities and just the emergence of them want to be independent and being job owners and being employed in the community. And we just got some simple house rules for those that who are in attendance. If you have any questions, we would like you to just kind of remember them or jot them down, because at the end there'll be opportunity for question and answer. If there's any issues that you're having, there's a chat option at the bottom of your screen. You can hit chat, and then you can put a message in the box. And I'm looking at the box, so I will try to help you as best as possible. And whenever you ask your questions during the Q&A, make sure you speak loud enough where we can hear you, and make sure you try to speak clearly. And lastly, just be respectful of others and try to use language and that's not offensive. And this is the Department of Labor. If you want to understand a little bit more about National Disability Employment Awareness Month, some of the many things you can do in your community to help raise awareness, then you can go to this website. They got a ton of different things, from writing to local officials to going to radio stations to all sorts of stuff. So now, without further ado, I'm going to let our first speaker again, as I mentioned, Ms. Powell, speak. And I'm going to mute myself and let you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Tyrone, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And I am honored to be here this evening with you all. My name is Anessa Powell, and for my visually impaired friends, I am a white woman with blonde hair. I am wearing a pink sweater with a white top, and I, once again, am so honored to be here representing not only myself, but All Ability Recruiting, and I will actually talk more about that later on as we go into it. But to tell about my story, I am a rare disease warrior. I was diagnosed with Addison's disease in 2013. Addison's disease is when your adrenal glands stop functioning. And it actually falls into the rare disease category, but it also falls into that autoimmune family. So I actually began with my thyroid of hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's actually back after my daughter was born in 2005. I was diagnosed with that in 2006. And as autoimmune conditions tend to do, they don't just stay with one, they tend to grow. And after my son was born in 2008, I started to develop symptoms that were pointing signs, which I didn't know at the time, towards Addison's disease. And so eventually, after many years of very, very random symptoms, I was eventually diagnosed in 13. And with those symptoms were very odd meaning I had horrible fatigue. Anything that the kids at this time, I have 2 kids, they were preschoolers at the time. Anything that they would get at preschool, those lovely little germs that they get, they would bring them home and share them with me. And I would take, 3 months to get over a cold, constantly battling various things. My pigmentation in my skin started to change. That's actually a side effect of Addison's. We get darker pigmentation. And so I was starting to get very tan, although I wasn't outside a whole bunch at the time. And I would get dark pigmentation in my gums. And I was told by my dentist it was due to aggressive flossing, which, was very odd at the time. But eventually I was having sinus infections, chronic ones, and I needed to have surgery to go in and clear that up. And in 2013, actually at the end of 2012, it was the day after Christmas, I had the surgery. And 10 days later, my body went into crisis, and we didn't know what that was, but I just presented at the hospital very sick. I was admitted, and 11 days later, I was diagnosed. Here I was thrown into this world of something that I had never even heard of, this condition. I barely even knew we had adrenal glands, let alone the fact that they weren't working anymore, what that meant. And your adrenal glands are actually very important because they do regulate so much of your body. They help you fight off infection, which explains why I wasn't able to get over simple things like a cold, because my adrenal glands were going out and I was having a really difficult time. And so when they went out completely, now I have to take medicine to offset anything. So I take medicine to live. That's the short end of it. And unfortunately, it's not the nicest way to put it, but basically, if I don't take my medicine, I won't be here. So it's very regimented with regards to following a medicine pattern. And also it helps to regulate your adrenal glands, help to regulate your electrolytes and your salt and balance in your fluids. And so I take another pill to help retain that, because if I don't, then I waste away everything and I can be dehydrated very quickly. And dehydration is a big key, especially here in the South. I live in the South, and in the summer times, the humidity can get us all. So I have to be very mindful of that. And Gatorade Zero is my friend in the summertime, especially if I want to exercise and be active and retain that. So ever since diagnosis, I found this new world of this invisible disability world of, but you don't look sick. That's a big hashtag online. And if you meet me, you would not know that I have a rare disease. You would not know that it's a constant balancing act of what it means to live with this rare disease, because unfortunately with this, we don't have a way to regulate our cortisol levels. And that's another thing that your adrenal glands produce is cortisol. And that's how we monitor. So if our cortisol levels go low, we just have to do it and monitor it by how we feel. Unfortunately, we don't have an at-home monitor to test it. We hope that's coming very soon. It's something is in the works, but it takes a very long time to get something, produced in this country and approved by the FDA. But we're hoping so that eventually that we'll have a monitor to help us tell us how we're truly feeling. Because right now it's a guessing game. So it's a balancing act. If I'm having a low day, I have to offset that with extra medicine and vice versa. So finding myself into this new world of living with regulating myself and what that looks like. And talking about the work piece of it, I used to be an event planner for Marriott hotels many moons ago before my kids. And I became a stay-at-home mom when my daughter was born. It was just not conducive for me working 80 hours a week to be able to see her. So I stayed home, and I had every intention of returning to my work, or to work in general, whatever that was going to look like, after my son, who was my second child, was born, when he goes off to elementary school. Well, that's when my health decided to take a sideways turn. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Was I going to be capable of working? Was I going to be able to hold a full-time job and balance my health and how I feel and still be a mom? All of those things. Life just takes a crazy direction, and you just never know where it's going to go. But I found this new world of being, when you are diagnosed with a rare disease, you have to be your own advocate, because 9 times out of 10, I am the one that's actually educating the medical professionals about it. And so I researched, threw myself into that, and threw myself into networking and telling my story so I can learn more from others and vice versa. And that's how it all began. In 2016, my husband accepted a job in a different state. So here I was in a new state, didn't know anyone, what does that look like for me? Do I want to explore work? What does that mean? And so I started to share my story locally there, and it grew into a passion of raising awareness for the invisible disabilities. 70% of the disabilities out there are invisible. And most people don't realize that we are on the cusp of an epidemic in this country, especially when we're talking on autoimmune diseases. And so sharing what it means. And so it started from there. We moved back to North Carolina in Charlotte, where I live, in 2017, and really wanted to focus on speaking because I love to speak. Obviously, I don't have a problem with that. And I just sharing the story, and then it turned into, okay, so what does that mean exactly when you're talking about invisible illnesses? Well, it also means for your businesses, and we live in Charlotte, so we have lots of big businesses here, and explaining how it is to appreciate those that do live with an invisible disability and those that have disabilities of all types and forms, and how do you better support those employees. So I started training classes and just educational pieces for businesses to help understand and appreciate and support their employees within. Pandemic hit, everything changed. And then everything stopped. And then it turned into, okay, how do I parlay this into the next role? What does that look like? And so my husband and I, in the springtime, really looked at each other and we said, you know what? We're going to start a recruiting firm, but we're going to specialize in the disability community because me especially, I am passionate about the disability community having the opportunity to have the seat at the table, having the opportunity that when people go in to interview, that they at least get the opportunity to be interviewed properly. And so people can hear their worth, not see their disability, but see their qualifications and what they truly can bring. And so we launched in June, and it's been a fantastic ride ever since. We've been so pleased with the response from people understanding what we envision. And Tyrone, especially, we're so honored to have him on our advisory board because he truly brings a great perspective to the team and what we envision for the company. You know, we're not saying we want you to hire people because they're disabled. We're saying we want you to hire them because they're best person suited for this job that just happens to have a disability. But we are there to be the person's advocate, to be your advocate. If you are interviewing for a job, you know, when you go in, the hiring manager cannot ask you about your disability, but they can ask you what accommodations you need. And that's where we come in. And that's where I can say, look, I have this amazing candidate that I want to present to you, and they have these qualifications. They just need to have these accommodations. Can you meet those? Can you be an inclusive employer who wants to honor your employees by making sure that everyone has the equal playing field? And, you know, that's our vision, and that's what we're really excited to see it grow. And Tyrone, I hope I covered everything.
Yes. You did great. So I'm going to kind of transition over to Mr. Griffin's next. So as if you're ready, I'm going to mute myself again to kind of give you the spotlight.
Okay, I'm Ashton T. Griffin. I currently live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'm a retired Wayne Community College chemistry instructor, where I spent a good number of years. Prior to that, I was also a high school science teacher, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. I was born in 1956 with cerebral palsy. I weighed 2 pounds, 11 ounces. Fortunately, I was born at Duke Hospital. I dropped down to 2 pounds, 4 ounces. And for a while, I held the record for being the smallest baby to live at Duke. In terms of my form of cerebral palsy, I am what's referred to as a spastic diplegia, which means that I have cerebral palsy that affects my legs. It can also affect your hands and arms, and it can also affect your voice. So you have people who talk like this. Uh, I eventually learned to walk when I was 4. I attended the Cerebral Palsy Hospital in Durham, which is now known as the Lennox Baker Hospital. He was, in fact, my orthopedic surgeon. And I was a guinea pig for what they call heel and tendon cord releases. And so over the course of 2 summers, I had about 150 stitches in my legs where they made tendon, where they cut tendons and then reattached them to allow me to walk more efficiently. I also suffer from poor vision, and I also suffer from about a 50% hearing loss in both ears. And I've worn hearing aids for over 50 years, and I have worn glasses since I was in the 2nd grade. I was probably one of the first mainstreamed, if we use that term, individuals, where I went to a normal school. I attended K through 6, and then I went to a 7 through 12 high school. I then went off to college and then got a degree in chemistry with the idea of either being or becoming a teacher or some type of research chemist. I tried teaching first, and that was a good experience, but my thought was, okay, I want to try being a chemist for a while. And so I worked as a quality control chemist in the area of penicillin pharmaceuticals. And then I also worked as a hazardous waste chemist, helping people to dispose of their hazardous waste materials from their manufacturing processes. And then I decided that, well, I really like being more in control of my own life. And so I went back to teaching. And I taught for 10 additional years in high school science. And then I had the great opportunity to come to Wayne Community College and replace a mentor, Dr. Ron Taylor, who introduced me to the world of chemistry. As I was one of the first, along with a couple of my friends, we were probably the first 3 high school students to attend Wayne Community College as what would later become known as Jumpstart. And and then I stayed there until 2017 when I retired. And I will be turning 65 in a couple of weeks. I retired when we moved to Spartanburg. Along the way, I got married. I've been married to my wife, Paula, who's an Episcopal priest, for 17 years. And she's been a great addition to my life. So that's kind of my employment history, so to speak. But what I want to focus on now is, okay, what about the employment part of it? Well, when I came along in the 60s and 70s, ADA wasn't around. You were pretty much on your own with the exception of vocational rehabilitation. And what I And I grew up in the small town of Goldsboro, and everybody knew who I was. And so that was certainly an advantage. But it got a little more difficult as I progressed to Raleigh, North Carolina, and Durham, and graduate school and so forth. And, I had roadblocks. And, I really hadn't used any specific help other than my own initiative. And I finally got to the point where I felt like I needed additional help. And so one of the things I did, particularly when I switched to uh, working as a chemist, was to contact vocational rehabilitation. And they were a great benefit in terms of matching me up with people. Uh, and got me a job that I enjoyed. And then ultimately, I went to work with a uh, childhood friend of mine and then branched on to Atlanta. And then from there, I came back to North Carolina to teach science again. And I really enjoyed that. And, but you really need to advocate for yourself. Uh, Vocational rehabilitation can open doors, but you've got to be the one to uh, sell yourself, so to speak, and prove that you can do the work. And there's so many benefits now that I didn't have. This ability to work remotely is perhaps a good thing for people who are disabled. It certainly gives you additional opportunities, but I didn't have. Computers didn't come along until I was in graduate school in the 1980s. Uh, the Another thing that you should take advantage of, particularly if you're in school, is working with your disability counselor at your community college, high school, or university. They're a great source of information and additional materials and so forth that can help you in classes. And, when I came through probably my junior year taking physical chemistry, one of my professors who was teaching an 8 o'clock class, he would come in about 7:30 and start writing on a board. This was an old chalkboard. And, if you didn't get there by about 7:45, you never caught up. And, it was 3 straight chalkboards of information. And he finally said one day, how about if I give you a copy of my notes? And I thought, that's really a good idea. I really appreciated that. The only other accommodation I got was occasionally professors would give me about an additional 10 minutes to finish a quiz or an assignment or whatever. But other than that, I was pretty much on my own. And today, and having taught at Wayne Community and had, for example, someone like Rishaw as a student, for Rishaw, I had to blow up my notes for him so that he was able to see them, as you'll find out more about that. There are electronic pens that allow you to capture and record information. All this really didn't exist when I came along. So I think the future is bright and better, but it still requires those of us that have disabilities of some type. We still have to advocate for ourselves and promote ourselves. And any assistance we can get is, I think, great. All right, Tyrone, I think I'm okay.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, once again, I'm Daniel Manderson. And I was here just making sure that I had some teaching points underway. So if I go back and forth, it's because I'm kind of looking at things that I want to include, and I'm using my phone, so you will see me kind of toggle back and forth. But I just wanted to kind of start by giving you some brief biographical information about myself. Let me just say my name once again because people often have a hard time pronouncing it. Dania Manderson, and I was born on the island of Jamaica in 1980. And I'm sorry, taxi confirmation. Sorry about that. And we migrated to America in 1994. I was 14 years old when we moved here, and I started in the eighth grade, and I'm mentioning that because it was going to connect to something that I say later. So I came to this country. I started school in the eighth grade. I went through the public school system as a middle schooler and a high schooler, and I earned a scholarship from the New York Times in 1999 at the end of my high school career. And I decided to take my scholarship to New York University, NYU. And I lived on campus as a person with a disability. I was born with muscular dystrophy, and it's a myriad of different forms of muscular dystrophy. And I will not bore you with anything genetic or science related. But what I will tell you is that the form of muscular dystrophy that I live with, in terms of how it manifests in my life, is I'm reliant on a wheelchair. So I use a motorized wheelchair for mobility. I also rely on the use of a personal assistant to help me with my personal care and basic daily living activities or tasks, I would say. And that's pretty much the disability part of it, right? And I don't want to dwell too much on that because I think muscular dystrophy, it shows up in different ways with different people. And I don't want to just create a blanket description for what it is. So I'll just kind of leave it at that part. When I went away to college, I lived on campus actually. And it was a really rewarding experience for me to live on campus. I'd always lived with my family, whether that be my aunt or my mom or my dad. So living on campus was a very new experience, right? I come from a culture where people with disabilities aren't necessarily expected to do much. And my mom was actually pretty revolutionary. I always kind of admire her for that. She's very revolutionary and always kind of just allow me to live as normal, quote unquote, I'm going to say that, normal life as possible. Um, so although she was a little bit cautious and reticent in me living on campus, she did allow me to go off and kind of spread my wings. And I think that's when I realized that there were things out there, little battles that had to be fought as a person with a disability, even though, and I think NYU provided me with a very rewarding experience, right? There is never a one size fits all kind of solution or remedy when it comes to what society provides, right? So NYU taught me a lot and provided me with a lot and gave me a lot of experiences, but I did have to learn about what it meant to advocate for yourself as a person with a disability, very early on in my college life. I started working for the Department of Education in 2003 as a teacher. And I got married right after that, and I had a daughter right after that. So by 2005, I already had a career. I already had the title of a wife, and I had the role of a parent, right? And working for the disability for the Department of Education and balancing, life as it is was, needless to say, a very enlightening experience, right? Because I was now working for the public school system. And yes, there are ADA laws and there are different sub parts for those laws, right? And there are things that should be provided to you as a person with disabilities. But what that actually looks like for for you as an individual it's going to be very different than what the law prescribes, right? So a large part, and it's just kind of what Ashton and Nessa has mentioned before, a large part of my experiences with working is being able to advocate, right? But before I could even advocate for what would be better suited for me, I have to actually have a knowledge of how I work, right? What is my working style? What is it that I need in order to be able to complete the tasks, right? So I think when employers are able to be very transparent about what the nature of the job is, what are the tangibilities that they need to get in order for the employee to be considered successful, if those things can be very clear and transparent, then the person with a disability can say, you know what, in order for me to accomplish these goals and to get these tasks done in the time frame that you needed, these are the things that I will need, right? This is the kind of workspace that I require. These are the resources that I need. You know, this is my better style, whether that's in paper and pen or technologically based. If the meeting should be virtual or if they need to be in person. I think that when we can know what the parameters of the job are, what the underlying things and the bottom lines are, then as a person with a disability, you can say, this is what I need in order to meet your demands. So I've always kind of tried to be very clear with my employer, in terms of what it is that I need. I might need a table of a certain height based on however high my wheelchair is, right? I have to be able to get under a table. The average table might be too low. I might need a particular kind of computer, right? Where there are buttons to click and not just a touchpad that I have to press down on. So, those are little things that I have to consider. I can't expect my employer to know. And I think sometimes that's a misconception, where employers don't know what it is that you require in order to get your job done, right? Kind of like someone can't choose your pants in terms of comfortability for you. But if you know what you need in order to function, then you and your employer can then have a conversation. And I think it's always best to start from a point of conversation where you're trying to come to a mutually agreed upon set of accommodations, right? Acting in good faith and not just expecting them to know beforehand or right off the bat what you need. Um, and then, there has to be also that resolve to advocating in a way that's a lot more aggressive, if you will, right? People aren't always going to take your needs or your demands seriously, right? And what do you do in that case when an employer may be brushing off what you require or what you're requesting? You have to be willing then to kind of push back, and not in a way you're always going to put yourself at risk of getting fired, right? If you push back. But I think if you can do so in a way that holds the person accountable to not just what the law requires, right, but also to what you mutually agreed upon and what you express to them, I think that you have to be willing to not just suck it up, right? You have to be willing to find a productive way to ensure that your rights and your accommodation requests are being granted. And it's a hard fight, right? It's not something that's going to just automatically happen. But I think and I use this term all the time, it's getting kind of tired to me, but it's all about the due diligence on the part of the employer and the part of the employee, and always trying to act in good faith when it comes to relating to each other and meeting the demands of the job. And I think I've said a mouthful there. So thank you for your time.
I'm the CEO of Community Heroes, and I myself, I have muscular dystrophy. The specific type is called myosin deficient muscular dystrophy. So it is genetic, and it affects muscle growth. And one of the main things about it constricts muscles and limits the bone movement. and it's progressive. So uh, as I got older, I slumping over, progressing more. But as far as um, work, myself, and education, um, I have an associate in human services for Wayne community. I'm here, born and raised Goldsboro, North Carolina. Um, now I have a bachelor's in psychology from North Carolina Wesleyan and a master's in psychology from the University of Phoenix. Their certifications, nonprofit management certification, uh, that I did not too long ago. And I'm married. You probably see my wife, your baby for. Uh, been married for 9 years. Got a 5-year-old son. 4 years old. Well, he's 4 years old. He'll be 5 though in November. So November the 5th. But that's what my buddy always said. Uh, but going back to the workforce itself, I just want to kind of touch on what all of us and really said at some point in time is when we have barriers and a lot of time, your disability makes it a little bit more tough to gain employment. Some of the things that I had to experience is, like Mr. Griffin said, having to use VR. And one thing about, like he said, VR is good, but they have so much of a heavy workload that if you don't continuously email, knock on the door, reminders, hey, I'm still not employed yet. They have so much caseload that you get lost in the piles sometimes. And, your caseworker may not get back to you for a while. They're like, oh, you never found a job? I thought you might have found one by now. A year has passed or whatever the case. And they don't intentionally mean to do it. But sometimes you have these young students that maybe 19, 20, they don't understand that you need to be your most strongest advocate. So, and like Ms. Griff said, that's one thing that we need to instill those that have barriers right now trying to get assistance. You are your best advocate. So I learned that early on. And and then like Mr. Madison, one other thing was when I did finally get employment, which was, man, really about 10 years after I got uh, my my associates. I got my master's degree in 2009, and then like 2 years afterwards, I got a job, and that was really through someone telling me to go and talk to a hiring manager at my own initiative, and I went and I volunteered. I volunteered for 8 months, and then I finally got hired um, as a tutor at Wayne Community. Um, but once I did, I moved on. I became an achievement coach, and that's basically like an academic advisor. But there were still things like I needed to take that was my height because of where I sit, and they did that. But there were still other things. I don't want to throw nobody under the bus, but there were things out there that I believe that could have been done better. Uh, but I think that because of sometimes businesses like to make sure they have a certain number of people, demographic wise, black, disabled, female, and you meet a demographic quota number and you got it there, but then those individuals, sometimes you don't really live up to what you're supposed to do for that category. So you're overworking them, even though you know they're on the agreement that you said you work them part time, but they're working full time hours. You put them in a supervisor position when they've never been a supervisor or a trainer than they were before. Um, and I experienced those type of things. So again, going back to advocacy, we had to make sure that we pull the curtain back and make people aware that this is happening. But not just for us, the one you see right now, but for people who are quote unquote fine, because 1 in 4 individuals uh, will find themselves being disabled. So, prime examples that everyone knows, like the actor Michael J. Fox. We know from Back to the Future, finding disabled, then he wanted to get Parkinson's disease, which would make him disabled because he had Parkinson's disease. So life changes. And because life changes, we need to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to various venues, employment, life in general. Um, so I'll finish this off and my talking, but that was one reason why I felt it in my heart to really be a voice to raising awareness about rare disease. I witnessed in the past 3 years, I've witnessed an uprise in individuals who have found their independence with disabilities and want to work in the community colleges. I've seen a lot of students going to get degrees, they're asking for accommodations, but they're going on, they're working now, and they're being seen in the public eye more. And that made me want to do something to be a part of this movement and raising awareness to people, let them know that, hey, whether you're ready or not, the special need population is strong and is to the forefront right now. There's a lot more businesses where individuals have barriers and they're business owners now. So, but that's my thing, my experience with disability, and because of things like ADA and advocacy, the individuals on this panel, that why I've been able to work now is a little bit easier for me now compared to maybe 30 years ago for someone else. So I was hoping that I know we're just at 7 o'clock. I know we had scheduled 8. But if you guys want to say something else, I'm going to open up. We got 2 individuals in attendance. I was just going to kind of interact with them for a little bit, if that's okay.
Tyrone, I'll just speak real quickly. I just want to piggyback what you were saying too about working from home and remotely, as well as Ashton. If there's one thing that has come out of this pandemic is that businesses have recognized that people can do their jobs, certain types of jobs from home, and they can do them well. So when you are advocating for yourself as someone who is disabled and needs to have that opportunity to work remotely, maybe not every day, but maybe more of a hybrid experience, businesses are open to that now because they see that that is something that can be done. If you are someone that doesn't operate within the traditional hours of say 9 to 5 because your body just doesn't work great in the mornings and you need to have a longer latitude, that is something that businesses are starting to understand, because if you get your work done, as long as you get it done, then they're going to be happy for it. It doesn't happen to be necessarily between those regular hours of 9 to 5. And so I think we can look back and say, okay, we've learned so much. We have learned that if we give our employees the opportunity and that flexibility and that support, then they're going to be a great valued employee because they feel valued and they feel heard, truly.
Yeah, and that is so true. And that's another key point we talk so much about, from the employee standpoint. But like I said, the employer plays such an important role too in this, in this partnership of employment and stuff. And like I said, just that relationship is so important there. That's okay. So I think we had someone that was trying to speak, but I think they must have accidentally logged out. So they might pop back in. And so another Another thing that let me back up some. Um, Another thing that I've encountered just with community heroes, and just with employees is I have a gentleman now who he wants to start his own business. He's into fitness. You know, he's a vegan. He's exercising a lot, and he's autistic. He was here at community college in Goldsboro for a while. Then life happened. His mother passed away, and then he moved to Maryland and started staying with his father. But he's gaining more of his independence now. But um, a lot of the things that you would need to do when his mom was alive, she did a lot of things like take care of bank accounts, bills, and things like that. But when I met him before he left, I just kind of started as his mentor, and I just kind of mentored him. Yeah, I helped him get a car, he got his own apartment. But going back to the job part, I showed him how to create a plan to be his own business owner, and we did the paperwork to register his business name in Maryland. He got his we paid his fee, Community Heroes paid the fee so he could uh, have a LLC for his business. And I put my name as someone that is of interest so I could get emails on the paperwork to kind of help mentor him along the way. But the point I'm getting to is the newer generation wants to, they have ideas to become business owners for unique ideas that sometimes I think institutions aren't traditionally used to seeing. And especially with technology now, you can use things like TikTok, Instagram, all sorts of different things to help generate revenue and become really a successful entrepreneur. And that's one thing I see the newer generation now, especially the ones who have disabilities, utilizing it. So that's another thing I think we may have to start getting employers to recognize that there's some new ways to hire these individuals. As I see Ms. Manson had to leave with us tonight. Thank you so much, Ms. Manson, for helping us tonight.
Well, I just want to say it's a pleasure to always be in, the midst of such great conversation. And I think I'll just right before I leave, I'll just try to encourage, any listener who might be entering the workforce or growing frustrated with the workforce or just feel as if they're a little stuck. And the truth is, working is going to give you a sense of morale, a great feeling, right? To feel valued and to feel as if you're being productive and to kind of disrupt that narrative of what people think when they think disability. Being employed does all of that, right? And that's not just being employed for someone. It could be starting your own business, right? The point is, if you are being a productive member of society, you are going to just feel that much better about yourself. And it's something that I encourage all people with disabilities to do, is to just get out there and utilize your talents in a way that can allow more visibility, but to also just allow more stability for yourself, right? To kind of break away from what society deems that you should be able to have and be able to accomplish. And I think that's really just the reason that I keep working. It's that sense of feeling fulfilled and feeling valued and feel as if I'm contributing to society as a whole. And I think that's just a feeling that everyone should have. It's a wonderful feeling to get up every day and know that you are making a difference in society. So if and when you can, break into the job market or create your own kind of agency or whatever it is that your heart is pushing you to do, I highly recommend delving into that.
And You just had a mouthful. I don't know. Sorry that, but yeah, you're definitely so right. You know, I can definitely relate to, like you said, that the main thing that kind of keeps me going is, like you just said, knowing that I wake up to small stuff, wake up and I look at my room and I'm like, this is my house that I work hard to be a part of. You know, I'm buying. You know, or like I just shared with you guys a couple of days ago. Me and my wife went to the For Kings and Country concert. You know, and I told her, I'm like, I bought the tickets months back, but because I worked and I saved the money, and I was able to do that. You know, and take her out and enjoy those things. You know, just small simple things that I think everyone, like you said, everyone should want to do, knowing that your hard work and your passion has paid off for you to be able to enjoy life. You know, live what we call one of the inalienable rights. You know, live life to the fullest. You know, pursue the happiness. I think we all should strive for that.
Well, with that, I will bid you guys adieu. It's been nice, and you can reach me. Enjoy your Sunday evening, guys. See you soon, God's willing. All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Yeah, I always enjoy talking with Miss Madison.
Yes, I can hear you. Give me a second.
Okay. I'm glad you were able to join us. I almost lost hope, man.
You almost lost hope. I didn't have Zoom on my computer. Oh Lord, I'm dark. I didn't have Zoom on my computer,
Yeah.
so I had to give me a second while I get situated here. Oh, I'm dropping my water and stuff.
Yeah, I thought maybe they need you at work. I said, man, they won't let you shut escape.
They did keep me an extra 30 minutes. Give me a second while I
Well, I'm glad you was able to join us.
get. Yes, that light is too bright.
You just missed one of our speakers. She had to leave, but the video will be up so you can see the video.
Give me a second. Oh, hold on. Let me go to, oh my God, I got so many windows open. Well, these are not windows in Macintosh, right?
I guess we saved the best for last, Rashad. I'm gonna let you go ahead. I'm about to give you the mic. I'm gonna mute myself just whenever you're ready.
Was that, am I supposed to say something? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Okay. Mm. Hold on, Tyrone. I'm still trying to get myself situated. Give me a second. So many windows open. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm ready now. Sorry, it took a while there. Good evening. My name is Rishaw Butler. I am 30 years old, and I have a master's degree in organizational leadership. I thank Tyrone Starkey for allowing me to be a speaker today. It's very important that we feature people with disabilities and see and tell others that we're more than our disability. So my disability is glaucoma. It's actually a specific glaucoma, but I can't pronounce the term of it. And pretty much it's losing vision in your eye. When I was born, I had cataracts in my eye and they removed them surgery. So since birth, I had this condition. Actually, it wasn't diagnosed when I was born because the doctors didn't know what it was. And when I went to Duke Eye Center in 2004, they were able to properly diagnose me with glaucoma. The symptoms of glaucoma, of course, losing vision is the ultimate symptom. And I cannot see out of my right eye at all. There's no light perception. And there was numerous things that they could do to try to save it, but at the time that they diagnosed it, it was too late for me to get treatment. Treatments include vision surgery, and this is the path that my doctor took. She took the path of medicine and, with eye drops and pills, and so she said she wanted to see if the eye drops and pills worked before she did the surgery, and to save the left eye because you couldn't do anything with the right eye because I don't have any vision. And so she did that, and the results were very good. She said she liked the results and have been on them. I've been on the eye drops and the pill to reduce the pressure in my eye since 2004. So I was about 13, 14 years old. And just recently, I had to go to an adult doctor because I was in pediatrics at Duke Eye Center, and they continued that regimen. They said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a doctor actually told me that. I didn't say the word ain't, they did. So I'm quoting them. They said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so that's the treatment that you can that you can get if you have glaucoma, is to do vision surgery or the medicine with the eye drops and the pills. Let's see here. So as I said when I introduced myself, I'm 30 years old. I have a master's degree in organizational leadership from Grand Canyon University. I have a bachelor's degree in communications from Southern New Hampshire University. I have an associate's degree in business administration from Wayne Community College and a general studies degree, associate's general studies degree. That's how I was able to enjoy, should I say Dr. Griffin? Mr. Griffin. He was my chemistry 1 and 2. Chem 1 and 2. I think I did organic too. Organic chemistry teacher at Wayne Community College. I thoroughly enjoyed his class, one of my favorites. And I'm bringing up Michael Bloom and Chris Denise and all of them up there in academic skills. And the reason why I took his class was because I wanted to be employed in the Academic Skills Center. And they said, well, to have you employed here, you got to know a science. And I said, I'm not good in science. I don't want to do a science. And they said, chemistry or biology. And I said, I'll do chemistry. And that's when I met Mr. Griffin. And I enjoyed his class for those 3 semesters. It was great. So my work history includes the 9 years at Wayne Community College as a tutor. Not only did I tutor chemistry, I tutored math English reading, also tutored computers, and pretty much helped students in those areas. Academic skills is one of, if not the best place I worked at since I started when I was 18. When I was at Wayne Community College, I did a few side jobs, including Bojangles and Speedway and J.C. Penney. And then I moved from there to go to Walmart and Lowe's. Also did Army and Air Force Exchange Service. I was a loss prevention officer, or the title was Exchange Security and Safety Associate. So I was in charge of training the associates and training them with security, and I also stopped people from stealing. And then I went from there to my most recent job was at LCI, Lions Club Industries. And there, they actually employ people who have disabilities, especially visual disabilities, visual impairments. They're called BVIs, blind and or visually impaired. And at that job, it works with the government to give the military members, because not only we are on Seymour Johnson, we're on Fort Bragg and all of the bases and posts around the country. They supply them with the uniforms that they need to use when they go for deployment, the equipment they need to use. If they need anything in their office, they supply those. And they also fill out contracts with the government. So if the Air Force asks for 100 BDUs, they don't call them BDUs anymore, but 100 suits for deployment, LCI will get that contract, and we have to supply them with the uniforms that they need for deployment. And so at that job was unique because it was a cross section between what I'm known for, which is customer service. I'm in the retail space. I've been in the retail space for years, and serving my country. And that's what I wanted to do when I was younger. But because of my vision, I couldn't do that. And so it was kind of like the best of both worlds. I had my retail experience, and I was able to serve my country. And so this employer, they are, not only do they have the retail, they have manufacturing, they have distribution, and they have e-commerce. And the thing about them is that the government is a law, actually, that the military people, the military airmen or soldiers, they have to buy from LCI. They can't go out to Amazon, like we can go to Amazon, Walmart, Target to get what we need, but they have to buy things at LCI. And so that's what kind of keeps them going in that sense, because it's a law that they have to abide by. They have to buy it from LCI. Or because not only are we fulfilling what they need, they're also giving us business, and we're able to employ more people who are visually impaired and are blind. So that's a little about me. I don't know if there's any questions anyone has, or I don't know what to do after this. This is my first seminar. Or webinar, since we're in the era of COVID.
I got a question, Michelle.
Yeah.
We all kind of talked about this a little bit, but is there any time that you can think of where you had like some barriers or maybe accommodation issues that you needed to express your concern about?
Yeah, so at retail, you don't have a lot of things are very small in retail, like with the numbers on the labels, things like that. And so it's very challenging to uh, to to see those letters. And I told my managers at these retail establishments that I cannot read the little numbers. Now at LCI is different because they actually employ people who are blind. So they know that, okay, this person can't see it. So we're going to make it bigger. And at that job that I worked at, it wasn't all, I didn't have to express that because they already knew. But if you work at Walmart or J.C. Penney or any of these other ones, those tags are small. But the good thing is we have technology. And technology, we are able to enlarge text on screen. So before, when I was early in my career, that was an issue. But now since we actually can use our own cell phones. I have an iPhone, but we can use our own cell phone to blow up the numbers on the tag, and we can scan items. And if we can't read it, we can blow it up and make it larger. And so, that was a barrier. But when technology adapts to the industry that you're in, and making things easier for you, it's kind of not a non thing now because we're able to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Michelle, because like you just said, those are going back in, those are small things like that. A lot of times individuals take things like that for granted. And like I said, you look at, you got to, I think you said with Target, you said, was the
Target.
plan. You look at the aesthetics, the building may have the ramps, the bathroom may be, handicap accessible, the aisleways may be wide, but then like you just said, when it comes down to wording, we had going back again the whole inclusive part. We just want to make sure everyone has a good and accessible experience. And it could be that if you can't see, you can cost the job money, or you can potentially give the wrong thing or whatever the situation is, or you might not really have a disability at all. You could just be old. Your vision might be bad. So there's just so many different things out there why inclusion is such a big deal when we're talking about employment and just social gatherings and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is true.
So I want to say I think you covered pretty much everything that we had talked about. I didn't know it was Mr. Griffin. Was there anything you wanted to ask for Shaw? Maybe Vanessa?
Well, one of the things I remember, of course, is having to blow up all my notes so you could visualize them.
Yes.
But, one of the things that's so nice now is there's so many, as you said, ways that technology makes it easier, better, and it's not that big a deal to do. So and I know you had was it a reader of some kind that you had?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And your test, well, of course, a lot of our tests were. Well, was I using computer at that time, or were you still?
Not at that time. I think it was 2 semesters after
we had blow your
you
test
started. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mr. Griffin was he. As he said, he had to blow up my test for me while I was in his class, but I was still, helping him run his exams on Fridays. And I think 2 semesters after I finished his class, he started using Google Classroom and all of the technology and everything.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot easier, and he's very tech forward. It was a lot easier for him to administer tests that way. And if he had someone with my condition or a condition where they can't see the test, it was easier because they have the computer. The computer can make it big, and he won't have to cut so many trees down.
We used a whole lot less paper, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Good to see you.
Rachel, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. So
No.
with your employer, when you go, because it sounds like you have a new employer, so did you disclose immediately of your disability?
Yes. I always tell them that I have a disability, and I tell them what it is. And the job at LCI, actually, you have to have a visual impairment in order to work there.
Yeah.
Because that they, as I said, they employ people who are visually impaired. Other jobs, they don't have to hire you, or that you don't have to have a disability to work there. But I always tell my HR manager, and because sometimes I may work a little slow, and I'll tell them the reason why, and they're like, "Okay, we understand, and we'll accommodate you if we have to."
Okay. Yeah. And that was my question, is if you disclose what accommodations you need from the very beginning.
Yes, I do. I tell them, like, I drive. I'm very, a lot of people in my condition can't drive. So I'm lucky to drive. And I told my HR manager, I said, well, the time is about to change and I have to be off by 5. And they said, okay, we'll make it work. And they were receptive to that. They didn't say, oh, you can't work here because you got to leave early. But, some people may be like, I can't do that. But they're where I work at, they listen.
That's great. So you can't drive in dark. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I can't.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And now with us hitting the winter months, it definitely changes things for you, I'm sure.
Yes, it does. Yeah. I'm an early person anyway. I like morning, but I told her, I said, I got to leave at 5. At 5, I have to be walking out the door because 15 minutes is pitch black in 15 minutes.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear,
right.
About those. They're wanting to meet those accommodations for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah. My birthday is the shortest day of the year, so.
That's kind of ironic.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah. December 22nd, winter solstice. It's the shortest day of the year.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's 7:35. I know it's a little bit early, but I think this right here has been a great webinar, and I think it'll be a good finishing point right here. So again, thank you, Richard, for coming in, and I know you had to work. You're probably ready to relax and everything. So, I definitely appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And for the ones that registered, I'm gonna have to go to Eventbrite. I will email them just personally. After I edit, I'll make sure they get their notification and stuff. Then we'll have it on YouTube, and you guys will know when it's on YouTube. So you'll see the link spread out. But again, thank you so much. This was great, and maybe maybe we can all collab together again down the road to do something else to help raise awareness just for inclusion in special needs population. Now, the good thing is now we know each other. We all can network, keep in contact.
Love that. Absolutely. It's been such a pleasure meeting you all. Thank you so much, Tyrone, for hosting this.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, guys, I'm going to kind of close out here, and I will be in contact with you all soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.